afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on yet another episode of the California Proprietarian Podcast, or CA PropCast for short, as we like to call it. I am your host, Philip Young, and on this show, we analyze all kinds of issues that have implications for private property rights, because on this show, we believe that the individual natural right to private property is the primary right that is granted to us by God. It's a natural right. It cannot be arbitrarily revoked by the state or by anyone else. So on this show, we like to devote as much airtime as we can to analyzing how various, primarily culture war issues, but also economic issues, might impact the individual natural right to private property here in the United States of America. And one of those issues, as you all know, I'm sure, from what you've read in the news for the last few years, is the issue of radical gender ideology, transgenderism, the demand that we always use someone's preferred pronouns, no matter how they present socially and in public. And to discuss this pressing issue, I brought a very good friend of mine from Pepperdine, Mr. Julian Pesci. He's very knowledgeable just through firsthand experience, as I think so many university students are, on how insane a lot of these transgender cultural Marxist activists can be. And him and I have had a lot of firsthand experience trolling lefties, having some hostile social encounters with them. And so I brought him on to shed as much eyewitness style new light on that particular topic from a firsthand perspective. So with that, I'd like to kick over the introduction to Julian so that he can give us a little bit of information in his own words on his own background, and then after that we'll dive into the meat of the issue, as we always do. So Julian, go ahead and introduce yourself and your background and all that stuff.
Hi, I'm Julian. I'm from New York. I was born in the city, and I moved to the Hamptons for high school. I met Philip here at Pepperdine, and I studied political science and communications at school.
Excellent. Well, political science is it's closely related to my own major. I'm a history major, so our disciplines have a lot of overlap there. And I think they've my history major and Julian's political science major have given us both crucial insights into how cultural Marxism tends to operate. To subvert cultures and societies and political systems as well. So with that, to dive into what we're primarily here to address today. Julian, if you could just give us some, anecdotal accounts of situations you've run into where a transgender person or cultural Marxist activist demands that we use people's preferred pronouns no matter what other factors are present. If you could just give us some insight into how situations like that have affected you personally, or what kind of encounters you've had with people that are like that.
I went to Starbucks one time, and there was this guy that worked there. He had a they, them pronoun paint on his shirt. And he also had lipstick on and stuff. Very weird way to show up to work. And I said, "Thanks, man. I appreciate it." And he looked at me like, what the fuck? Like, my name is it's like, what the hell? Like, why you call me? Well, I'm not a man. Like, almost offended that I said thank you, man.
Right.
There's times that I was like, "Oh, thanks, bro," and then the people have gotten mad that I didn't call them by their identified pronouns, and you're not putting their identity.
And now this particular Starbucks was on the campus of Seaver College at Pepperdine, right?
Yeah, there was. Yep.
And are you talking about? I think I remember who you're talking about exactly. It's the fellow with the beard, right?
I think he's got a beard. Yeah, I don't remember his name exactly, but long hair.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I know the exact individual that you're talking about. And he wore glittery eyeshadow on his eyelids, I think, and totally androgynous. It was very difficult to tell whether this was a man or a woman. Although I think the beard would indicate that it's probably a biological male.
The beard, yeah, and his name was he had a male name, so I mean.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like that guy, Sam Brinton, who identifies as non-binary and goes by the pronouns they, them, who used to work for the Biden regime, but who they had to fire because he got caught stealing people's luxury, brand name clothes out of their luggage at a couple of different airports. He proved himself a kleptomaniac, so it kind of reminds me of that guy. Both, very weird and deviant looking.
People get very, very butthurt about it. They get very offended. It's almost like you think like you stab them or something like racist. It's almost more. I feel like nowadays it's becoming almost as bad as like it's almost getting to the point where it's like, oh, you might as well call someone you might as well call someone the N word. It's almost they consider just as rude almost nowadays. It feels like.
That's true. They do very much act like that, and I think also it speaks to the trend that we see of the modern left here in the Western world, and particularly in the United States, of equating not using somebody's preferred pronouns to like some kind of act of violence. And I was wondering, can you shed any insight on like maybe some of the things you've heard in classrooms at Pepperdine in the various classes you've taken?
Yeah.
That kind of feed into that. So to speak?
Pepperdine, as of recently, I've had classes where now they're like, oh, what's your name and what are your pronouns? And people are like, oh, my name is, Lily, whatever. My name is so-and-so, and my pronouns are he, her, he, him, or I'm a they, that. And it's like, and it's kind of point out, I guess, where teachers are doing that because they're scared of showing that, of them getting fired or something like that because they didn't, not being inclusive. It's gone to the point now where it's all about inclusivity. And I mean, hell, we were in class and I said, I wanted to do a project on about how I think pronouns should not exist and how they really kind of doesn't make you sound smart at all. It makes you sound kind of stupid. Like, why is there one called they, them? That makes no sense. What are you? You're one person.
Right.
But they or them would be like, oh, let's you say, oh, they bought us food. You wouldn't say, that one person bought food. They means like you, someone else bought food.
Right. So it's a subversion of the proper grammatical rules of an entire language. Of perhaps the most prominent language in the world, the English language, and so we've seen that their agenda appears to be to change people's thoughts by changing the rules of the language itself, which is of course a theme that we see echoed in 1984. I
what they them actually is the meaning behind that is they don't want to be known as a guy or a girl.
Right, which is very strange because the vast majority of the vast majority of the people that identify with the pronouns they them, they typically socially present in public as pretty clearly as either a man or a woman usually.
And I feel like you could tell you could tell in the especially even with trans people get that sort of when people become like a woman or whatever and they change their gender to women's to be women. So you could tell by the way their nose is shaped and their voice and just their behaviors are not female behaviors. It's very male. They're still masculine to a degree.
Right, unless they've undergone a full transition, like surgical transition, and even then, you can usually tell that they
you
have
can tell by the way
why
their face was rebuilt, or by the way that
yeah,
the scarring or something you could even see on their face how their bone structure is different.
Mm-hmm.
They still have hairs on their face still,
right?
Which means you'd be.
Right, they usually have razor stubble if they attempted to transition from a man to a woman. Now, as far as the curriculum that you've been taking recently, and of course I graduated from Pepperdine about a year ago, so I was there pretty recently too. But you've been there even more recently. Has there been any curricula in your courses or any academic materials that you've seen in your courses? Any assignments that appear to be intended to reinforce this gender insanity agenda, from what you can tell?
So, sophomore year, we did I had a class called Interpersonal Comm, and what we did was we had journal partners for the assignment, and we had to argue whether or not there was only two genders, or if there was one more than male, whether there was more than just male and female. And we had to say what we think. And my partner and I disagreed. She's like, "Oh, what about this? What about binary? What about what about this?" And she kept trying to argue there was more than one gender, more than two genders. And well, there's not. It's impossible, male or female.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't go. A license does not say you're just says male, female. It doesn't say what your gender. It doesn't say if you're.
Right. So how did this disagreement between you and your project partner end up getting resolved, if it ended up getting resolved
It
at
didn't
all?
get resolved. She wrote in her part of the journal that she thought there was only two genders, and I wrote that there were only two genders.
Okay, got it. So you ended up just submitting separate assignments over this.
Yeah, we had to submit it together, but I had to incorporate her ideas.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, we had to incorporate each other's ideas in the mix. We disagreed tremendously. We've argued about it for at least like a half an hour arguing about it.
Oh,
But
that's hilarious. And so
she was German. She was from Germany. This girl.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, Germany's all wokeified as well. Thanks to the export of these absurd ideas from academic institutions here in the United States. But one thing I have to ask about that is, do you ever notice that because it's been my personal experience that women and girls tend to be more prone to indoctrination by far left cultural Marxism than men do? Has that been your experience as well?
I think women can be more annoying about it. I feel like more irritating about it because they're more passionate about it, and there's women that are also very feminist too.
Yes,
I feel like it's coming a thing now. It's like I understand like women's rights. Like I'm not I'm all for women's rights, but like at times it's very. If you say like I remember in sociology one semester. The teacher for Soch had us all arm wrestle.
Oh.
And he had groups of arm wrestles. He had men and women both arm wrestle. So you get one guy and one girl arm wrestle, and the guys were all beat the girls. They were all stronger.
Right.
And people in that class were butthurt because he was like, men are stronger than women were. And, and he ended up being mad because we all were stronger than women.
Right.
Strength-wise. But I mean, you don't see. Would you want a woman on? I mean, not to like do like when you go to a people that do oil drilling and stuff like underwater and stuff, and commercial fishing. Does the girl do that usually? Not typically. You wouldn't see some girl doing oil drilling or welding and what's it called welding. You don't see women doing that. You don't see women building a house typically.
Well, yeah, it's very rare that women will willfully or voluntarily enter professions like that. It just doesn't tend to appeal to them.
Sure, it's there, but it's not like it's not as common as you think. Like it's not as like ooh, like women. Yeah, no one's saying that women can't do it. It's just not as common, and they get offended when you say, "Oh, men are better at this," because men are better at certain things than women are. It's just a fact.
Yeah, do you get the sense that a lot of these young women, especially on university campuses, that they've kind of been deluded into thinking that they're interchangeable with men, that they can inherently just do virtually anything that men, appear to have more of a predisposition toward?
I feel like they think they could do everything that a man can do, and that's just obviously like I'm not saying they fully can, but I mean like it's they can't. Like they kind of there's certain just women are much better at nurturing than we are. They can nurture much better than better than we can. Women have different skills than we have.
That's right.
You tell you're gonna go women can usually cook better than men can. Women can usually nurture better than men can. Women are much more understanding sometimes than men are usually.
Yes, and those are gifts that are associated with femininity, and femininity it should be venerated and elevated. But I think what's happening now, and you can tell me what you think about this analysis right here, is I think there is an attempt to emasculate men, to remove the masculinity from men, and there is also a commensurate attempt to masculinize women.
But the thing is, women are not going to want to do the jobs that men do a lot of the time.
Right.
Women don't want to get their hand. Women. I mean, you think a woman's going to want to go on be someone who does oil drilling and stuff and does welding and
no.
I think women want to like commercial fish and in the cold weather and get soaked with ocean water, and they don't want to do that. They just don't.
No.
It's a very dirty. It's a very dangerous activity. It's not like it's an easy, like, sure, women can fly a plane, women can drive cars, women can do that. But do you think women wants to do like things like construction and things that are very labor intensive?
No.
No.
No, it's very rare that they do, and it seems very bizarre to me that anytime there is a line of work or there's an industry where there's a very strong gender imbalance, where the workforce for that industry is, say, 90 to 95% men, the radical feminists automatically, and a lot of other people on the far left, they will automatically assume that imbalance must be due to sexism and misogyny. They only attribute it to that. They don't attribute it to, any average biological or psychological differences between men and women, which that's very bizarre to me, that they always chalk it up to deliberate, malicious discrimination.
I mean, when you think about it in context, though, like, would a woman really want to, like, I mean, a woman would do that job one day and be like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do this.
Right. Yeah. Quite so. I've noticed that. Now, do you think, if you were to guess, because I know you're a political science major, what do you think are some of the social or systemic reasons that cultural Marxism and far left politics today, especially today, tends to appeal so much to millennial and Generation Z young women and girls? Like, what do you think are some of the reasons for that?
I think some of the reasons that what was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's quite all right. What do you think are some of the social or systemic reasons that wokeism, so to speak, and progressivism appeal so much to millennial and Generation Z young women and girls? I have some theories, but I was wondering what your theories might be.
I think it appeals to them because I think it's something that's interesting to see how we look at our generation in the past, like our past generation, and how it was very different. I was watching The Sopranos. I was watching Sopranos. I don't know if you ever watched The Sopranos ever. You watched the show before, The Sopranos?
Oh yeah, I've seen a few episodes. Yep.
You noticed like back then it was a different time, and it was a lot more like you do this and you do this, and like if you don't do this, you're gonna get a smack across the face. You're gonna you have to follow this certain orders. I think it's like nowadays is this generation where it's just very lazy and everything's kind of dumbed down now, and it's all like there's no such thing as really work. Look at our education in this country. It's really a disaster. Like most people can't speak another language in the U.S.
Do you think that a lot of that dumbing down and a lot of that laziness, do you think a lot of it's due to social media and all the mechanisms we have for instant gratification?
I think nowadays, there's so much, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, like all these social media apps that are around now are just created such a lazy generation to where there's no such thing as like, oh, let me go do this. Let me, everything is just, because the generation is very distracted now. There's no such thing as like focus anymore. I think it's kind of sad in a way. I think our generation is kind of seeing like, some of them are seeing like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Like, why is it like this? Like, why you talk to someone who's older, like in their 90s, and that, my grandfather, I tell him about this. He's like, what the heck? We're like, what is this? He's like, this is ridiculous. He's like, this is stupid. He doesn't understand it.
Well, there's no doubt that mass social media has definitely destroyed our attention spans.
Definitively. It's killed it.
Yes, and given us all, a form of mass psychosis-style ADHD. But to relate it back to, what we're specifically observing with young women these days, do you think that the fact that the Democratic Party and its allies promote abortion so much, do you think that that's a major contributor to why so many young women are attracted to the left?
I think there's certain things that there's certain parties that have certain values that will be more appealing to certain sides. Like, I don't know, like I personally don't believe in it. I think abortion is, kind of established, should be up to the mother's choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think it should be illegal at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a very Republican side, like, oh, abortion should be banned. But like, I don't agree with, the making of rules where you have to use pronouns in schools, or you have to where kids can be trans at whatever age they want. Like, I think that should be illegal. But Democrats say, oh, you're not being inclusive at all. You're being transphobic or you're being homophobic. And it's like, really, are you?
Right, because what always gets me about that is that you have a situation where these transgender activists who identify as trans, they're incensed, like they get enraged when you don't immediately perceive, their preferred pronouns that they want you to use. But a lot of times they make little to no effort to present publicly in the way that they want to be perceived. So you have a situation where they demand to be called she, her, but it clearly still looks like a man, and you correctly perceive it as being male or masculine, and then they're really angry about that. So it seems that along those lines they're just so incredibly unreasonable.
I mean, I've been watching a lot of TikToks about there's this person I saw the video the other day about where that person's talking about her parts and the Mickey Mouse. Remember that?
Yeah, you sent that to me. I saw that. Yeah.
Video, yeah, about how the marshmallows and the cake pops and stuff, and
right.
That creator is someone who is trans, and she'll go to a restaurant and she'll bash the waiter for not calling her by the pronouns. When I saw him, he was like, "Oh, here you go, sir." But like, I mean, you hear how she speaks and how she sounds. Like, what do you think of her? She just looks like a guy more than she looks like a girl. You think? I mean, you could tell by the way that she looks. It's not a girl. I think that I think that the Democrats nowadays are just wanting to push this fake agenda on kids that are so young that like, oh, it's okay to be trans. Oh, it's okay to get hormones and therapy when you're like 10 years old. Oh, yeah, take some testosterone, take estrogen when you're a kid. Become a guy, become a girl. It's like that's not okay.
No,
it shouldn't be allowed any means.
It's completely sexually inappropriate. At best, it's a horribly abusive thing to do to a child. To mutilate their body. I know. Yeah, the people that promote that or that attempt to engage in that should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. They should be treated like child molesters because that's more or less what they're doing. But
I mean, you're mutilating yourself. You're taking. I mean, imagine cutting off your penis,
right?
Getting and then getting it shaped into a vagina.
Yeah,
like I mean that's just how could you do that? Just how do you where's your respect for yourself? Where do you have that respect? Like how do you do that to yourself?
Well, and it's also
like, oh, okay, like no, it's not.
It's going to cause lifelong severe medical problems too. Something like that.
Oh, of course.
And, I have a feeling that Big Pharma has a stake in this because, they could potentially reap enormous profits off of perpetual treatment.
Oh, they can, yeah. Think about all the testosterone that they had to make and all the pills they had to take for the surgery. After their surgery, it's a long process to heal.
Right. Well, and a lot of times they never heal. Like, they keep getting infections. They keep getting complications, so...
And that take all these hormones all the time to keep up,
Yeah, to maintain those changes.
I had a girl in my stats class that she was a guy at first, and then her name was Tommy, and she didn't change her name. When she was a guy, that was her guy name at first, and then she changed her name to kept the name. Now she's a girl, and I was just like, I was like, why would you want to do? Like, why would you do it? She's like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you willingly do it? Why? Like, I don't understand. Like, how you could. Where's your self-respect for yourself?
Mm-hmm. I have to ask, have you ever observed anything at Pepperdine, like either in a classroom setting or, in one of the social settings over there, social area, common area? Have you ever observed, influences that might cause somebody that already is prone to suggestion or has a mild case of gender dysphoria to develop a full-blown case of gender dysphoria or transgenderism? Like, it might push them in that direction. Is there any propaganda at Pepperdine that might do that to somebody who's already vulnerable or already on the edge?
I mean, I feel like this. I feel like professors now at Pepperdine are much more like, oh, let's all be inclusive. But, we can't say you guys because that's not gender inclusive. Like, we can't say you guys because then it's like, what if they're a she, her? What if they're like, they all get offended by like, I mean, I've said to, I'm sure you said to girls for, oh, how's it going, you guys? Like, obviously they're not guys, but it's an expression. And now people are taking that now because you're saying you guys.
Right. It's all.
It's not inclusive.
guys has evolved in the in American English to be a gender neutral term, and they don't even allow us to use it in a gender neutral manner. It seems, because they're just that sensitive.
I mean, I said in class, I said, "Oh, how's it going? How's it going, dude?" And like, someone was like, "Oh, like, well, they didn't care." But like oh, yeah, Starbucks. My friend was in line. I said, "Why did I'm gonna call him dude?" And then my friend got mad because I didn't call him by the pronouns, and I was like, really? Like, why? What do you care?
So your friend, who isn't even directly affected by this situation, actually got all indignant with you and went off on you about it.
She thought it was rude.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
She said I was not respecting their identity.
So and this friend of yours who got all indignant with you is a woman, right? Is a female.
Woman, yes, woman.
Okay, so yeah, it's a pattern I've noticed over and over again that because my understanding of the female psyche is that women on average are more prone to socialization than men. So if you put them in a certain environment, they are more likely to conform to what they perceive are the predominant social forces that shape that environment. That's my theory as to why they tend to be much more left wing and much more woke and cultural Marxist these days. Has that been your experience? Like, is that the reason why you think?
I think women are much more passionate about it than men are. I feel like men don't care as much as women do.
Do you think?
Like, I feel like they take it more seriously than men do.
Do you think it's because they're more inherently emotional, like they're more governed by emotions?
Yeah, that could be it.
Mm-hmm. And so now I have to ask, what role exactly do you think social media plays in?
I think when you see because there's obviously creators that really encourage being trans and encourage you to come out and to be gay or to be to get your surgery or bottom surgery, whatever you want to call it, top surgery, all this crap nowadays that they have going on. I think that's like so if someone who is on the fence of wanting to be trans or on the fence of wanting to be gay, social media could really, but it's promoted now. It's like, oh, yeah, be inclusive, like be gay, like it's a community, like be yourself. That's who you are. Like love is love. And there's this big movement now on social media saying that's okay. Like don't worry about it. But overall, like I mean, I think people get a lot of their ideas from social media. I think a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
More than themselves, or it's also family too. Like think about some families. Some people are very liberal, and they liberal families aren't going to say, "Oh, don't do." They're going to be like, "Yeah, go ahead, do it. Get your surgery, get your pronouns, do this. Yeah, do it. No worries." But it's encouraged.
They'll often overtly sanction and encourage these, these horrible trends.
If my kid was transgender, and I don't think I'd talk to him ever again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the whole thing is I feel like if my child approached me and they were telling me they had gender dysphoria, my response to them would be that this is a phase that a lot of people go through. They tend to outgrow it naturally.
Well, no, of course. I just mean like if they actually became like a woman or became a guy, I would totally. I don't know how to handle it. I'd be disheartened. I'd be mortified.
Well, yeah, I would be too. It's an incredibly difficult and it can seem almost to be an intractable situation. But the key is typically it's a phase that kids outgrow. But by the time they're a little bit into adulthood, and if they're just left alone to sort themselves out, they typically do.
If they talk about that at school and say, oh, hey, to go to the therapist or whatever, and say, hey. I'm having this thing where I think I want to be a girl, I don't want to be a guy, I might want to change my gender.
Mm-hmm.
That psychiatrist isn't going to say, "Oh yeah, don't do that. That's wrong. Don't do that." They're going to be like, "You should do it. Yeah. You should do it." And I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be encouraged at all.
No. Oh no. It should be very much discouraged because to encourage it in a child is at best highly sexually inappropriate. and abusive as well. It should that's a criminal thing to do. Now, as we near the close of this episode, I have to ask, what are some of the recommendations that you can make to parents and local activists and maybe student activists on college and university campuses to push back against and fight back effectively against this this seemingly insurmountable tide of cultural Marxist wokeness and social progressivism?
I think, you should speak out and speak freely. I don't think you should care if people get offended by it at all, because deep down, you're not being really offensive at all. Like, what you're just like, oh, you're not calling them they, them. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just, that's just a stupid name, a stupid word. It's like they, them. Them is not, obviously, is more than one person. It's not like, you shouldn't have to, like, respect that.
Right.
They have a name. Like, let's say their name is, Tom. Their name is Tom. Like, their name is not they, them, or he, him. Like, it's Tom.
Right.
They're like, why do you have to? I don't think that they should have to be. No one should be scared to call them by their name. There shouldn't be this, they put on blast for it. I think it's liberals love to say that how Republicans are extreme and how they're really harsh, but like, obviously we all have friends that are not Republican, or friends that are different political views, but Republicans I feel like don't bash as much as liberals do.
Right. Well, they don't go out of their way to attack their enemies or their opponents in the culture wars nearly as much as people on the left tend to.
I mean, they'll try to push their narrative, sure, but they're not going to like attack you for it. Like, I think it's gotten to this culture now where people won't even talk to you because of your beliefs at this point.
Right.
Like, it's gotten really extreme. Like, I mean, I had two friends that I stopped talking to now because I got I didn't get a vaccine, so they won't talk to me anymore. I think the best advice I give you is tell your child to not be scared of, speaking their true opinion or speaking out to themselves, and to specifically, parents should not be encouraging their children to be inclusive. They should encourage them to speak, have their own opinions, and
right.
But if their kids come to them saying, "Hey, I think I'm this, or I think I'm becoming trans," they should be like, "Hey, hold on a second. This is not, you shouldn't be doing this. This is not a good thing to do. Don't get into this."
Right.
Like, there should be some education on it. It shouldn't be so like, "Oh yeah, do it. Yeah, go ahead."
Yeah.
It should, but it's a life altering and life altering operation on you. You could totally screw yourself over really terribly. And I think I think we need to stop pushing it in schools. Like, it doesn't belong in school. I don't think that LGBTQ really belongs in school that much. It's not a topic that should really be going on in school at this point.
I agree 100%. It's sexually inappropriate for younger children, and it's also a form of ideological indoctrination that is intended to subvert the traditional family structure and to subvert traditional faith and pave the way for an entirely new socioeconomic order that will prove to be very totalitarian and oppressive. And I think you just outlined some very effective ways that normal people in their everyday lives can push back against some of this insanity effectively and turn back the tide. It's being willing to stand up and speak truth. And Jordan Peterson, who I admire very much, he has said before, there's nothing more powerful in the universe than one man speaking the truth.
I mean, yes, that's a good point. I think just like LGBTQ in general should not be a big thing in school. Like, why? And men should not be wearing makeup. Makeup should not be allowed on men, and especially in a school environment.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't belong in a school environment. And men should not be wearing a dress when they go out. It's just not appropriate. There's a time and place for everything. It's just not appropriate. You want to be gay? Like, I have no problem with gay.
Right. Yeah, and especially when you have things like Drag Queen Story Hour and men dressed as women in the presence of children to cater to some kind of a fetish that is seriously problematic and disrespectful and sexually inappropriate and usually intended to convey a far left cultural Marxist woke progressive ideology to those children. But yes, Julian, we thank you so much for joining us today, and to my audience, thank you so much for joining us on yet another episode of CA PropCast. We will see you next time with more food for thought, more very meaty, profound topics to dive into. And until next time, we thank all of you for watching, and as always, Sic Semper Tyrannis. God bless.